Hi, we're standing outside the federal courthouse in San Francisco. I wanted to talk about criminal justice reform. I've been a criminal justice, criminal defense attorney and civil rights attorney for about 24 years now. And so criminal justice reform is something that I've been involved in a lot and something that is very important to me. Because I know, having been seen it up close, I know the system's broken and we've got to do something about it. There are a number of things. You could talk about 10 or 12 issues that involve criminal justice reform, but there are four main things that I'd like to see done very quickly. First and foremost, we have started in the last 20 to 30 years, in this country we've started a for-profit prison industry. The for-profit prison industry is something that is not only, I believe, caused enormous problems for each individual state, the federal system, but it has also caused problems for the prisoners themselves. When you have a for-profit prison, for example, it's pretty easy to cut corners. So instead of the inmates getting 3 solid meals a day, it's easy to cut costs and cut back on the food. It's easy to cut back on some of the things inside prisons, such as allowing them to have legal research. It's a real problem. On top of that, and probably most troubling, is that a number of the for-profit prisons actually have quotas. There have to be a certain number of prisons in there, a certain number of inmates in there, or else the federal government has to pay regardless. So what happens is, in order to meet those quotas, you see people being moved into for-profit prisons that have no business being there. It becomes an industry that perpetuates itself on the notion that the more we arrest people, the better off we are to make a profit. So first and foremost, I think we have to get rid of for-profit prisons. We were going in that direction, the Obama administration, in the last 6 or 7 months. Unfortunately, the Trump administration has overturned that, and we are now going back in the opposite direction. Second thing I think is extremely important is bail reform. Bail in this country should not be based on your income. It should be based on whether or not you're a danger to the community. I've seen so many examples over the years, I could cite literally hundreds of them, of people who were not a danger to the community but couldn't make bail because it was set at an amount of money that they just simply didn't have. I remember, for example, the guy I represented a few years ago who he was arrested on driving on a suspended license, and when he went to court, bail was set at $5,000, which you pay 10% of to a bail bondsman is $500. For a lot of people, that may seem a fairly easy amount to pay, but for a large portion, especially of low-income groups, it's impossible just to come up with $500. They're struggling to make the rent. They're struggling to make any kind of a payment for their bills. $500 can be insurmountable. So in this case, this particular gentleman, he couldn't make the $500, so he sat in jail. And he sat in jail for almost 3 months until we were able to resolve the case. While he's sitting in jail, he lost his job. He lost they kicked him out, he and his family, out of his apartment. And he now is faced with the prospect of not only having to try and find a job, but trying to have to explain why he was in jail for 3 months. This was all due to a suspended license, which is absolutely no danger to the community. I think the third thing we have to look at that's extremely important is the de-escalation of dangerous situations by the police departments. Training in de-escalation is becoming more popular in police departments, but it's nowhere near the levels that it needs to reach. You see statistically, for example, that some of the larger police departments in bigger cities will spend as much as 5 to 10% of their time training their officers on de-escalating a difficult situation. For example, if they come upon a mentally ill person who has a knife, they're training them now on how to better handle those circumstances. Unfortunately, what you see is anywhere from 50 to 70% of the training goes into how to use weapons and how to actually take care of a situation either through tasers or through guns, which ultimately results in the death of a number of people, particularly young black men. What we've seen when de-escalation, the training is given to police officers, we see a dramatic change in how they react to the community, especially when it's combined with courses on racial profiling. You'll see in de-escalation, for example, you'll see that officers learn to talk and to negotiate and to work with people who are troubled or who are angry or who have a weapon, and they're able oftentimes to get out of the situation with there being no violence and no harm. I think that one of the things you find, I talk to police officers a lot in my job, and one of the things you find is this is something that they want. The officers on the street talk about the fact that they appreciate the training because they don't want to be put in a situation where they have to fire. They prefer to be able to de-escalate it. So I think it's a natural solution that we need to be looking at, that our police departments actually have to be trained more on de-escalation than even on weapons training. The fourth thing is the funding for rape kits. Right now we seem to find funding for anything the Defense Department wants, but here we have something that could actually not only help women in terms of women who are assaulted, but it also could potentially save women from future assaults, and yet we're not willing to fund that. All over this country there are women who have been sexually assaulted who have been willing to come forward, and it takes a lot to come forward, and they've been willing to put together a rape kit, to go through it, which is not an easy process. It can often be a 30-minute to an hour process to go through. It's in many ways degrading, and you also have to talk about what happened. So it's a very difficult process, but they've been willing to go through it. Then what you see is the rape kit is put together, thrown into a storage room, and because there is a lack of funding, it may never even be looked at. We have to change that, because if you've got the funding to actually go through and do the testing on a rape kit, you are not only validating the woman's bravery and her courage for coming forward, you're also allowing other women to say, I'm willing to do this because I can see that this is something that will help. And then second, the obvious thing is if you find in the rape kit DNA that may match a person who is a serial rapist, then you're talking about getting somebody off the street, somebody very dangerous off the street. So I believe that instead of the constant desire to fund the Defense Department, to fund weapons for police departments, we need to be funding these departments so that they can test the rape kits, because this is something that we can do directly to help not only women who have been assaulted, but potentially women who could be assaulted by someone who's out on the street. Those are four things I would talk about. There are a number of others, but I do believe that we have to grasp first and foremost, the system is broken and we need people who know how to change it. And I do know how to change it. Thank you.